Hello friends, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hello, welcome. My name is Ashley. I am a full-time working mom. I have a 2.5-year-old son named Grayson, and here on my channel I talk about all things mom related. I do cleaning content, I do vlogs, I do fitness content, I do unboxings, reviews, you name it, it's probably here on my channel. I would love if you hit that subscribe button and become a part of my YouTube channel family. So let's get to this video. Today, we're gonna be talking about the hardest, most unexpected parts of motherhood. Just in general, becoming a new mom is really challenging. So I'm gonna talk about the things that I personally struggled the most with. I have wanted to make this video for a very long time, but I've held off because some things feel too intense when you're going through it. And I want to be able to speak to or be able to speak about something without getting emotional or without getting upset. So here we are, my son is 2.5, and a lot of these things happened initially at the beginning. So we are going to try and stay on track because I am easily distracted, but I have my list in front of me. We're going to start off in chronological order with the newborn stage. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, the newborn stage. So everybody knows newborns don't sleep well. And I'm thankful that it's talked about so that I was prepared. Grayson did not sleep well for the first several weeks to several months of his life, which we knew was going to be a thing. So therefore we didn't struggle with it that much. Like, it wasn't a huge obstacle. Obviously being sleep deprived is not fun for anybody, but because I had expectations of being sleep deprived, it was a little bit easier to cope with. Some things that caught me off guard. The biggest struggle for me at the beginning was breastfeeding. And I've actually made a video specifically just talking about my breastfeeding experience. It's probably older now. I don't even know how long ago I made it. The expectations with breastfeeding are just a lot. I thought I had done enough research, but it really didn't matter because when he came, things did not go according to plan. Breastfeeding was a huge challenge, and it wasn't just a physical thing, it was a huge mental thing for me. So right away when he was born, we wanted him to only have breast milk. We did not want him to have formula. And this is not something that we talked about while I was pregnant because I just assumed that he was going to be breastfed. My mother breastfed all 4 of us. Josh's mom breastfed them both. It wasn't a thing that was even on my radar that he might have to have formula. I had a low milk supply, which was partially probably genetic, but also we had so many visitors in the hospital, so many visitors, and I'm not comfortable exposing myself to everybody. Not to mention the nurses in the room every hour trying to eat, trying to change the diapers, and just trying to adjust to taking care of a human being aside from myself. I did not put him to the breast often enough, and I did not pump often enough. The pumping thing is probably what contributed the most to me having a low milk supply, because basically in the hospital, when he's not on the breast, you should probably try to pump every hour or 2 just to get that colostrum to come in. But that's neither here nor there. It doesn't really matter anymore. All I will say is that breastfeeding was one of the most mentally exhausting things that I've ever had to do. That first time, the first day we came home from the hospital, we had to give him some formula because I didn't have basically any milk for him. And it was just so mentally exhausting. The amount of guilt and the amount of shame that I felt, I basically was torturing myself for no reason. For at least the first 8 weeks of his life, when he turned 8 weeks old, I finally gave up breastfeeding and bottle feeding completely, and we went strictly to formula. It doesn't really matter anybody's opinions on that. I just had to do that. Not to mention I was going to be going back to work, and me pumping strictly would not have been even remotely close to enough. So at 8 weeks, we switched over to formula exclusively, and for the next year, I completely just beat myself up, tortured myself. I should have done this, 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 I can't believe I didn't do this, I can't believe I didn't do this, I can't believe my baby's formula fed. I mean, you just literally torture yourself. It's crazy. So that whole mental battle I was not prepared for. But we're gonna move on because needless to say, breastfeeding is a huge struggle, probably the biggest struggle that I went through transitioning to a new mother. But you get that point. We're gonna move on to the next one. Teething. I didn't understand teething and what that really meant. Like, you know, the baby's gonna be drooling a lot, you know that they're gonna be in pain, but you don't know that's gonna be like 2 years of their life, basically straight through. Once they start to get teeth in, it's like at least 1.5 years straight of like pretty constantly teething. It caught me off guard. We learned to cope with it. We learned what worked best for him, thank God. And I'm happy that for our next child, I will be better suited to take care of that and to, you know, cope with that. But it just caught me off guard, the fact that when he's 5 months old, he's going to be teething through that time frame all the way till he's like 2, getting his 2-year molars in. Just wasn't prepared. It wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't the biggest problem we encountered, but it definitely was something that was a challenge in becoming a new mom. Okay, moving on to the next point, health problems. Starting off with his eczema. So Grayson does have eczema. He's 2.5 now, so his eczema is much better than it was at the beginning, partially because he's kind of growing out of it, and partially because we just understand it a little bit better at this point, a lot better at this point. So I don't remember how old he was when his pediatrician had mentioned that he probably had eczema. It was probably at his 2-week appointment. She had mentioned something, and then over the course of the next year, it was just a constant battle of finding the right products to use when he had a breakout, finding what products to use in between, finding the proper bath and body wash, detergents, all of those things I just was not mentally prepared for. But now that he is 2.5, it's much better dealt with. We currently use Aquaphor mixed with hydrocortisone cream when he does have a breakout. We use Cetaphil body wash for him. It's gentle. And then I use just a plain detergent, no extra scents, and then white vinegar instead of fabric softener. And that has been much more gentle on his skin. And then we use a Cetaphil lotion in between when he's just got like dry skin going on, not necessarily like a breakout of eczema. But kind of on that same page, health problems. We have dealt with so much sickness. So from the time he started daycare to the time he turned about 2, he has had countless number of colds. I'm talking like basically every other week he has a cold, runny nose, cough, sore throat, the whole 9. He's had 12 ear infections, some of them double ear infections. He had to have tubes put in his ears, which ultimately did not help the ear infections. He's had pink eye twice. He's had a couple viral bugs. just so many things. I am not a person who gets sick very often. If I get sick, it's just a minor cold or allergies. And I mean, I do have stomach problems, but I cope. So like, I don't have to miss work, that kind of stuff. And as a child, I didn't miss a lot of school. I was very rarely sick. And so it has just been a huge adjustment. And I know this year, the past couple of years, it's a lot different than it has been in the past because of COVID. Grayson's daycare is closed 4 times due to either exposure or positive results within the facility. And that has just been huge obstacle for us as a family who, you know, both of us work full time. It's just been a challenge. But, you know, that's obvious. So just the amount of times that he's been sick has really caught us off guard. And then when your child is sick, trying to figure out all of the proper medicines to use, that's a whole thing too. People are very judgy and opinionated about like if you're doing a more holistic approach or if you're using, you know, Tylenol with red dye 40 in it, you know? So it's just all of these different things that you have to think of. But now that he's 2.5, we feel like we have everything kind of down to where we know what to do. Okay, so the next thing, we're gonna kind of move into toddlerhood, specifically once your kid turns 2, some things that you might, you know, some challenges you might be presented with. The first one is just the sleepless nights. So when you have a newborn, you know that they're not going to sleep well for probably the first year or so. But what I did not understand was that it doesn't like get better when they turn 1, really. And even into toddlerhood, like Grayson is 2.5, and I can't remember the last night that we had like a full night's sleep where he went to bed on time, slept through the night, and woke up at a decent time. One of several things either happens at this point, like literally right now. The past few weeks have been really rough. So bedtime has been a problem. We're still able to get him in bed by like 8:30 most nights. That's later than I would like because I do need some like mental time after he goes to bed, between like when he goes to bed and when I go to bed. I need some time to decompress from the whole day. And the later and later and later his bedtime gets, the later my bedtime gets. So the less sleep I'm getting. We have recently transitioned him to a toddler bed, which is probably partially to do with the problems that we've been having recently. He just does not have a front on his crib, so he can get out and come into our room when he needs. But backing up, one of a few things are going to happen. He's either going to go to bed later than usual, or he's going to wake up in the middle of the night one time or several times. And when he does that, he is either going to cry until I come get him, or he's going to come into our room and go to sleep immediately with us, which is my preference. He is maybe going to come to our room and need milk and or want to watch TV. And depending on the day, he's either, you know, passed out after a few minutes or he's awake for the next several hours. And as a working parent, my God, that has been a big challenge. And then on top of that, like, if he sleeps through the night, he's probably going to wake up at 4 a.m. or, you know, 5 a.m. Sometimes we get lucky and he'll wake up once in the middle of the night, go to sleep pretty quickly, and then wake up at 6. Just the sleep thing has been a huge struggle. Like when they're a newborn, you know, they're going to be up and down throughout the night. That's part of the reason why moms usually, you know, get the 12 weeks of maternity leave, because it takes about that long to regulate that sleep cycle a little bit. I just had no freaking clue that when my child was 2.5, I'm gonna be more exhausted than I was when he was a newborn, because at least I wasn't having to go and work 10 hours after a sleepless night. And it's not like one night, it's literally every night. And it's been, you know, up until the time when he turned 2, he was sick all of the time. So when he's sick, he doesn't sleep well, which is understandable. But the past few weeks have not necessarily been because he's sick. It's been for other reasons, transitioning him to a toddler bed. He's having bad dreams, we think. He's getting a little bit more scared of the dark. We think TV time, screen time, all of these things have a part in the sleep. And it's easy to say that, and it's a different story to actually deal with it. When I go to bed, you know, if I get home from work at 10:30 and I go to bed at midnight, my son is in my room at 2 a.m. and he's up till 3:30. I have to get up at 5:30 the next morning to be at work at 7. Doing that consistently takes a huge freaking toll. So that's kind of one of the things that we're struggling with right now. Anyway, moving on, still in toddlerhood, eating, getting your freaking toddlers to eat is so stressful. And you can say you're gonna do all of these things. I'm sure some things like baby-led weaning may actually help when they turn 2 and they decide they don't want to eat anything ever. It's just stressful as a parent because you want to do what's best for your child. You want them to eat a full meal, balanced meal. You want them to eat their vegetables, their fruits, their protein, their carbs. But when it comes down to it, maybe he only eats his yogurt for dinner, or maybe he only eats his banana, or maybe he only eats the broccoli, or maybe he eats none of it, or he eats all of it. I'm telling you what, it's so stressful. I was not prepared. The older I get and the older he gets, I'm kind of coming into it where I understand and I'm able to comprehend and kind of talk myself down. If he's not hungry, he's not going to eat it. We'll leave the food there for him. And if at some point he decides to eat it, great. And if not, it's okay. It's hard, but it's okay. So those are kind of the different stages that have been challenging. Now I want to talk about just overarching themes that have been a challenge for me in becoming a new mom. The first one is just constant social pressures and expectations. Everyone has opinions, and this generation specifically has very strong opinions about spoon-fed purees versus baby-led weaning, disposable diapers versus cloth diapers, co-sleeping versus sleep training, the cry-it-out method, all of these different sleeping methods, different medicines. Are you doing a more homeopathic thing? Oh my gosh, so many different cliques about all of these different things. And the expectations are impossible to live up to as a working mom. Oh, you know, coming home and just doing nothing but spend time with that baby. Okay, well, how are you supposed to get anything else done, right? One thing that I dealt with, like a specific example of social pressures, was when we were doing cloth diapering. I felt so good at the time about cloth diapering. I loved it. I was obsessed with it. I definitely went full throttle into that obsession. I feel like I was very knowledgeable about it. I still am, obviously, because you know, you can't unlearn things. I went full force into cloth diapering, and we ended up cloth diapering for 6 to 8 months. I can't really remember. But the reason why we stopped is not because, well, I mean, part of it was he was a huge baby, and by the time he turned 1, most of the diapers didn't fit him anymore. He did end up slimming back down. He would have been able to, I mean, he would probably be able to fit into cloth diapers now that he's 2.5. But when he was 1, most of them wouldn't have fit. Anyway, the reason that ultimately I stopped was because I was so tired of having to be an advocate for using cloth diapers and trying to have to fight everybody about using cloth diapers. Oh, I don't understand why you use cloth diapers. That's so old-fashioned. Disposable diapers are so much easier. Oh, it's so hard for me to put on the cloth diapers. I can't get the buttons snapped. Oh, it's so much extra work to do cloth diapers. And just having to constantly answer as to why I wanted to cloth diaper my child was so exhausting on top of everything else that I ultimately just gave up. I am going to try it with my next child, and hopefully I will have more of a backbone then. I could say I probably will. But that's just one example of constant social pressure and how it affects you as a parent. The next thing is just the mom guilt. You guys know everything. It's just never ending. You could feel guilty about spending too much time, you know, doing laundry and doing cleaning, too much time at work. The fact that your child's at daycare for 10 hours a day while you're at work and you don't feel like your job is meaningful. So you just feel like you're wasting time. There's no ends to the mom guilt. It does get better over time. For example, my child is at daycare today and I am not at work, but that's okay because I deserve to take care of myself too as a human being. And it's not like I'm just sitting around watching TV, although that would be totally fine. I'm being productive. I'm getting things done. At the beginning, I used to have to be like, oh, well, he's at daycare today, but I'm doing this, this, and this, and this, and this, and try to convince other people, even though they didn't care, that it was okay that he was at daycare and I was at home doing chores. Now I'm like, yeah, no, he's at daycare. He's learning. I'm busy trying to manage this chaotic mess, because if the house was not clean and organized, my mental state would be worse than it normally is, and therefore nobody's happy. So moving on from that, the mom guilt is just insane. The endless chores, the endless laundry, the dishes, the vacuuming, the picking up the toys. Oh, it's just crazy. Trying to be a working parent and take care of that as well. The next thing is just having unrealistic expectations, specifically about being a working parent. I always knew, not always, but you know, I have a full-time job, so I knew that I was going to have to go back to work when Grayson was 12 weeks old, but I did not comprehend what that meant for me. It meant being so physically exhausted that I don't feel like I can function sometimes. It means feeling guilty about having somebody else watch your kid all day. It means had I decided to continue to pump, it would have meant me taking breaks at work, going out to my car for 15-20 minutes and pumping and trying to get everything stored. It's just not rainbows and butterflies. And you look at people who have young children and they post the cute pictures with the cute outfits, and I've done that too. I try to post the happy things, because why would you want to post the things that are crap? It is hard. You know, you see all these pictures of people with their beautiful kids and everyone looks happy, and you're like, why am I so tired? Why am I so stressed out? Why am I not happy? Because sometimes I'm not happy. I have been so physically and mentally exhausted the past several months that it's hard to be happy, and I still want to appreciate moments, and I feel like I do. But the time that I spend with my son on a normal basis, not on my days off, if I'm working during that day, coming home after working 10 hours, he went to daycare for 10 hours, so he's exhausted from playing all day and learning all day. I'm exhausted from being up on my feet all day from working. We both come home, we're grumpy. It's the witching hours for both of us. Nobody's happy, and it's not rainbows and butterflies. And I just thought any moment that I was going to be able to spend with my child was going to be happy. And it's not. And I just thought I would always look at him and be like, oh my God, he's the most amazing, beautiful child. I love him so much, which I do. But also sometimes I just look at him, I'm like, God, I want to smack you for being such a brat right now. I don't smack him, but I want to because he's crazy. And it's just those unrealistic expectations of it's always going to be happy. You're not going to be tired. Crazy. Anyway, moving on, because I could talk about that for literally hours. The biggest point, not the biggest point, the last thing I wanted to talk about was just daycare. Daycare. This is a problem. In the United States, I don't know about other countries, so many things. Okay, I'm about to go off, but just, you have been warned. The cost of infant care specifically is outrageous. There are not enough programs to assist people to pay for daycare. Wouldn't you think that you want more people to work than not to work? Because wouldn't you rather pay a working mom, wouldn't you rather pay 20% of her daycare costs as opposed to unemployment? I don't understand the system and how that works, but people have to stay home with their children because they can't afford daycare. But I can barely afford daycare and I'm working my ass off so much that I can barely see my child, barely exist outside of work. It's just crazy. So the cost is insane, which this is not an attack on daycares. I understand taking care of an infant is expensive. They've got the formula. Most daycares provide the formula and the baby food. They have to pay their employees not well enough, which I don't understand that. Most of the daycare employees make minimum wage. So tell me how it's so expensive. And then also they're making minimum wage. That's neither here nor there. But the cost of childcare is outrageous. The lack of childcare is insane. It is insanely difficult to find a good daycare with openings that is not going to literally break the bank. Crazy. The infant care thing is, there's basically no infant care in my area. There's like 1 or 2 facilities for infant care. It's crazy. Like, you have to get your child on a wait list for daycare when you first find out you're pregnant, if you're going to send them to daycare. So daycare, the fact that there's no assistance for it, the fact that it's extremely unavailable. What else? I didn't understand. And what ends up happening is parents are put in a position where they can't find care. They can't find good care. So they end up taking their child to maybe a facility, whether that be an actual facility or an in-home facility that they maybe don't feel confident about, but it's either do that or lose your job. So what are you supposed to do? And then we have children being beaten, being neglected. I don't even want to talk about that, but we're putting parents, working parents, in a situation where they don't have good options. Like, you should be able to know that your child is in a safe place and being well taken care of while you're at work, and you should be able to know that you are going to be able to afford groceries that week while paying for daycare. It's just crazy. I don't even know where else to go from there, except the daycare thing has been one of the hardest struggles that we've gone through, especially financially, because we both make way too much money to get any sort of assistance. That's neither here nor there, but we live paycheck to paycheck because of our expenses. And part of the reason why we do that is because the first year he was alive, we paid a ridiculous amount of every month for daycare to know that he was safe. Quitting my job was not an option, still is not an option. So, you know, where do you go from there? What do you do? It just feels like some people live life without consequences, and then the rest of us get totally screwed. So I don't know. I don't know where I'm going from there. That's kind of a negative note to end this video on, but I am going to end it there. Those are all of the hardest parts of becoming a new mom. Just my opinion, my own personal experiences. I do, despite what it sounds like, love being a mom. It has been one of the most fulfilling joys of my life. My son is, oh, he is so amazing, and he is so loved. He is so smart. He is so funny. He makes me happy. Even when he's throwing a tantrum, it makes me happy. But there are a lot of challenges to being a mom, and you know, it's not all rainbows and butterflies, and but I wouldn't change it. So that is going to conclude this video. If you enjoyed it, hit that thumbs up and the subscribe button to see more of my videos in the future, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye.